From a mysterious figure appearing in a basketball coach's footage in the Philippines, to an unidentified killer in tactical gear roaming a Texas church, and unsettling 8mm film revealing a chilling discovery in the woods. These are mysterious, unexplained things caught on camera around the world. This first video showed up on a news segment in the Philippines back in 2003. So a basketball coach was filming one of his training sessions, just a normal day with the kids out on the court. Everything seemed fine, it was sunny, no drama. But when he got home and started reviewing the footage, he spotted something weird. In the background, across the street, a kid suddenly runs by. Now, why would this catch his attention? Well, the coach didn't recognize the kid at all. In fact, he didn't even see him there while he was filming that day. It was like the boy had just materialized into the video. He rewound the clip again and was totally creeped out. Alright, maybe he was just freaking himself out. Maybe the kids had seen this mysterious kid. Well, he had all his basketball kids watch the video too, and they all freaked out. None of them had seen the mystery kid either. And on top of that, they started telling him about how they'd had this strange feeling that day. Some of them even mentioned feeling cold chills during the practice, which made no sense because it was hot out. It was summer, it's the Philippines. Wanting answers, the coach had the video checked by a professional editor. After examining the footage, the expert confirmed the mystery figure was definitely there. There were no signs of tampering and no digital tricks. What you're looking at here is security footage captured inside a church in Texas. The identity of this person is still unknown. On April 18th, 2016, 45-year-old fitness instructor Missy Bevers was found dead inside the Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian, Texas. She'd gone in early, around 4 a.m. to set up for one of her boot camp classes. By 5 a.m., a student arrived and found her body. She'd suffered multiple puncture wounds to the head and chest, and a hammer was also found nearby. Surveillance footage from inside the church, taken shortly before the attack, showed a figure dressed in full SWAT-style tactical gear, a black helmet, a vest marked police gloves, slowly walking through the building. The person is seen opening doors and just casually smashing windows. They had a noticeable limp or some kind of awkward gait, possibly dragging one leg at times. Police still haven't even identified though if the suspect is male or female. Strangely, nothing was stolen either. Missy's iPad and personal belongings were left untouched. The church's exterior cameras weren't working that day, and investigators never released footage showing the actual encounter. It's believed that the killer waited inside and ambushed her. The 2010 to 2012 Nissan Altima was caught on a nearby store security cam circling the parking lot around 2 a.m., flashing headlights and acting suspiciously. That driver was never identified. Missy had also been receiving strange LinkedIn messages from a man before her death. We don't know if that's connected or not. To this day, even with all this footage, no one knows who killed her or why. This eerie footage was posted to YouTube by Chad Logan back in 2012, and it's been a complete mystery ever since. It's just 5 minutes of this creepy 8mm footage. Most of the video is pretty innocuous until it gets to the woods. Here we see the camera person following this old woman into the woods before we're eventually led to a cloth sack on the ground. The camera person gets up close to the bag and opens it, revealing what looks to be human hair, and then a full human head. There's only one other video on this person's channel called Bitterroot Photos. Here we see Chad holding up a series of old black and white photos which supposedly came with the reel of film that he received. For context, he was a student at a university in New York. He just moved into a studio apartment and needed some furniture. Found a guy on Craigslist that wanted to desperately get rid of his things at super cheap prices. He sold things in bulk to get rid of as much as possible. Chad bought a small table, and with it came a bunch of other random things, one being this old wooden box. He had to force open the lid with a screwdriver, and inside he found these old pictures. The word Bitterroot was handwritten on the backs of all of them. There was also a tin can that contained a reel of 8mm film. To this day, we've never gotten any updates. Notice anything strange about this next clip? Yeah, where the hell did that dog come from? So this video comes out of Chile. It was posted to YouTube back in 2015. What I like about this one is that there's a very good reason for someone to be filming the road. There's a street race happening. Sometimes I watch, supposed real ghost or cryptid footage, and I'm like, alright, but why did they have their camera out in the first place? Anyway, this one looks pretty convincing to me, But what do you all think? Let us know down in the comments. So there's this video from 2017 that a lot of people probably remember getting shared around. It came from a hospital in Rio de Janeiro. It's genuinely unsettling to watch. So a man came in with a serious wound to the face, but instead of, sitting waiting for treatment, he's moving through the hallways like, well, in the way he's moving. I mean, just look at it. Not really easy to explain. He's arched backward, he's moving in these jerky, disconnected ways, and he's growling like an animal. So what's the backstory? Well, the hospital never really said anything about it. No statement or diagnosis made public, nothing. But most people watching it would probably assume he was on something, and honestly, that's probably the most reasonable take. Wheelchairs rolling around on their own, a classic horror trope. This footage supposedly comes from a security camera at a hospital in the US. Nurses would often experience odd things on this wing late at night. Supposedly, an elderly man was admitted after a long illness that left him unable to walk. He spent most of his time in a wheelchair, usually in the same stretch of hallway. Staff said he would sit there for hours at night when things were quiet, just watching people come and go. One night he passed away during his sleep. Not unexpected or unusual at a hospital, but after that, nurses started noticing small things. The lights in the man's former room would sometimes flick on even when there are no patients inside. And wheelchairs left locked in place would sometimes be found feet from where they were left. This image was posted to Reddit by EOGO5 with the heading, "Did I take a photo of a ghost back in 2013?" The Redditor wrote that they used to work in film and TV in LA. And back in 2013, they picked up an overnight job at an abandoned Linda Vista hospital. The place was genuinely uncomfortable to work in, they wrote. Most of the shoots happened at night, and because the hospital was so large and mostly empty, moving between set locations meant running through these long, dark hallways. Well, years later, while transferring old photos to a new computer, the Reddit users started going through pictures from that night. When they got to this photo, something in the image caught their attention immediately. At the far end of the corridor, there looked to be a figure. It looked even stranger zoomed in. There's really no better way to describe it other than ghostly. The uploader didn't see anyone in that hallway at the time. This footage comes out of the Victor Velella Children's Hospital in Rosario, Argentina. In the clip, hospital staff are in a corridor when a balloon starts moving toward them on its own. It's floating just inches off the ground, drifting slowly down the hallway, but it almost looks purposeful. Translated to English, one of the workers says, "When I go to one side it follows, and when I go to the other it follows again." Later in the footage, the balloon appears again near a kitchen doorway, and that's when both of them just ran off. Apparently, there's been paranormal activity inside this children's ward. This balloon was being carried by the spirit of a child who died there. These images were posted to Reddit by Shinebrock12, who talked about visiting Yorktown Memorial Hospital back in 2013. The first photo was taken in a completely dark hallway. They said they just snapped it randomly and later noticed the blurry thing in the image they circled, but they're not sure what it is. Another photo was taken in what used to be a children's playroom. They say they heard a noise out in the hall right before taking it. In that shot, they think there might be the shape of a little girl in the frame, plus what could be a few orbs near a doorway. Now, they also mentioned hearing a few sounds while they were there. One supposedly picked up a voice saying, "Well, well, well." A friend recorded something in the kitchen that sounded like "get out." In the long hallway, they got a faint "hey," and in the chapel, there was what sounded like a woman's voice, almost like she was quietly reading from the Bible. Yorktown has quite a reputation. It's been on ghost adventures and was once investigated by Lorraine Warren. This is the last known footage of a man named Stephen Kocher. Back in 2009, Stephen was living in Salt Lake City, Utah. He'd quit his job and moved down south to St. George, hoping to start fresh, but things weren't exactly going great. He couldn't find steady work, money was tight, and life was just kinda stuck in neutral. Then, out of nowhere, on December 12th, he up and left town. The next day, Stephen calls a couple of his friends and tells them he's in Las Vegas, but he doesn't say why he's there or what he's doing. That's the last time anyone ever heard from him. A few days later, police find his car parked in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Henderson, Nevada. Nothing's been stolen, nothing really seems off. He even left wrapped Christmas presents in the back seat for his family. A doorbell camera from a house in the neighborhood caught Steven on the day he disappeared. You see him park his car, calmly cross the street, walk down the sidewalk, and then just walk out of frame, and that's it. That's the last confirmed sighting of him. No one knows why he was in that neighborhood. It's not a rough area, it's not near anything he was known to be involved with, and he didn't know anyone who lived there. His phone was pinging towers for a couple days after that, but then it just went dark. Some people think he might have faked his own disappearance, like maybe he was just overwhelmed with everything. He was broke, wanted to start over, but it's been over a decade now, and there's never been a single clue about where he went. If you heard a voice calling to you from another room, only it sounded just like you, what would you do? This clip was posted to TikTok by Andy Winehouse, and I don't even care if this is staged, it just gives me the goosebumps. Just the idea of hearing your own voice calling to you from the next room, it sends a shiver up my spine. The uploader also wrote in the comments, "For extra clarification, I thought it was the TV or my wife watching one of my TikToks at first. I called her immediately when I realized it wasn't her in the other room. I waited about 3 minutes and the voice stopped, but footsteps continued for about 12 more minutes." In Plattsmouth, Nebraska, there's a place called the Museum of Shadows. A lot of creepy things are said to go on here, but this video actually showed up on Fox News. So in the early morning hours of February 2nd, 2018, museum owner Nate Ratterman checked the cameras and spotted something straight out of a ghost movie. Inside one of the museum rooms, a small ball, what paranormal folks call a trigger object, starts moving. Of course, there was no one else in the room at the time. The ball doesn't just do a lame little, roll either. It lifts off the ground like it's being picked up by some unseen hand, and then it gets chucked across the room. You'll notice at one point it's sitting on the floor and then bounces into the air. It's not being thrown from off camera or something. The museum sits in a building from 1881 that used to be a saloon, with a brothel upstairs where a number of people reportedly died. This next video comes out of a hospital in Mexico. Here we see a doctor being filmed with what has to be a mid-2000s flip phone. Just gotta love that early YouTube 240p quality. Suddenly though, something weird happens in the background. Watch the double doors behind the doctor. You can clearly see a dark figure pass by. It's not a light trick, it's not a camera glitch. Something clearly moves behind those doors. Well, alright, so no big deal. It's doors leading to a room someone just walked by. Well, the camera operator reacts. Clearly wasn't expecting anyone to be back there. So he walks over and opens the door to check things out. And inside we see, well, nothing. At least no living person. It's just this empty room with medical equipment, and one piece of gear is slowly rolling, like something just brushed past it. And if you look closely back at the shadowy figure and how it moves past the door again, it almost looks like it doesn't walk, it kinda glides. You don't get that up and down motion when a normal person walks, it's just fast and silent. Reddit user Baroness von Schrader posted a couple of photographs taken at their aunt's wedding in 1966, and one of them looks very off. The first picture is normal, just a happy bride and groom. The second picture looks normal at first glance, but look at it for more than a couple seconds, and there's clearly something off about this image. Just what is that ghostly looking figure in between them? Clearly the uploader didn't know who it was, because they took the time to post these images. Well, the Redditor also attached one more image, a photo of their aunt's grandmother, who'd been dead long before the wedding photos were taken. What do you all think? Did the bride's long dead grandmother make a visit from beyond the grave? This final clip comes from Reddit user Stuart James Author, who'd been carrying out a paranormal investigation at Oxford Castle. He hadn't noticed anything odd while filming, but when he reviewed the footage later, he noticed a couple very unsettling things. First, while passing by a window, he spotted what really looks a lot like a ghostly face peering in at him. Take a look. So, did you spot that? Here it is zoomed in. This next one is kinda hard to make out, but as he turned a corner leading into a dark hallway, he spotted what looked like a humanoid figure leaning up against a wall. He said he hadn't seen it when he was filming initially. This first story really makes my skin crawl. So the footage you're looking at here has been reposted so many times, I have no idea where it originally comes from, but the man was a bedridden burn victim. All of a sudden though, he just got up and started aimlessly walking around before trying to leave the room. Hours after this video was recorded, he passed away. Now, again, there are tons of re-uploads with varying stories attached. Some more outlandish uploads claim the guy had been pronounced dead, but somehow sat up and started moving around. Some claim his name is Kadin Saloom and that he came from Iraq. It's Hard to find verified info on that though. So this is a very mysterious piece of footage, but a lot of doctors who've watched this video are reminded of a genuinely creepy phenomena: terminal lucidity. This is when someone who's seriously unwell suddenly snaps back into clarity right before they die. Usually shows up in people with advanced dementia or severe brain conditions, but it can also happen with people who are severely injured, close to death. They might look around and recognize family suddenly. Sometimes they hold a full conversation that sounds like the old them is suddenly back, or they'll get up and walk around like this, but it's temporary. Sometimes it lasts minutes, sometimes a few hours. After that, they slip back into the same unresponsive or confused state, and they usually pass away shortly after. There's no clear explanation for why this happens. Did this security camera capture a soul leaving the body? This footage comes from a hospital in China. We see a woman lying motionless in a hospital bed with a white sheet covering her body. Then, just seconds into the clip, this figure suddenly rises up. It almost looks human, except it's completely translucent. The figure slowly sits upright and just vanishes. The CCTV recording was reportedly captured around 4 a.m. on July 20th, 2014, but the footage didn't really explode online until 2 years later, after it was uploaded to YouTube in July of 2016. Is this actually proof of a soul leaving the body though, or is it just a camera glitch or edited footage? Well, either way, you may not want to watch it alone at 2 in the morning with the lights off. That eerie footage was filmed at a hospital in Honduras back in 2016, one with a pretty creepy reputation. The story goes that a doctor had taken his own years earlier there. According to rumors around the hospital, strange things had supposedly been happening there ever since, especially late at night, when lights would randomly flicker on inside empty patient rooms. Footage someone filming down a dim hospital corridor suddenly catches this strange-looking figure slowly peeking out from behind a doorway. First, it just looks like a regular person, but then the figure steps further into view, and the body doesn't look solid. It almost looks transparent from the waist down. The figure slowly moves past a line of stretchers before fading away completely right in the middle of the hallway. The video exploded online after being shared on a Honduran paranormal Facebook page called La Otra Demencia, and within days, millions of people were arguing over whether it was real or not. But what do you think? Share your thoughts down in the comments. Back in 2015, hospital worker Andrew Milburn was starting a night shift at Leeds General Infirmary in England when he sent a Snapchat photo to his girlfriend. The image showed a long corridor inside one of the wings of the hospital. Andrew later said, "My girlfriend asked me to prove I was at work, so I sent her a picture as I walked to my office." At the time, he didn't notice anything unusual in the shot, but after looking back at it, a faint, ghost-like figure can be seen in the background near a children's ward. He posted the image on Facebook, where it picked up thousands of likes and comments. Andrew said the room the figure appears to be heading toward is where the hospital switchboard is located. He also mentioned that some staff had reported hearing footsteps in that area, even when no one was supposed to be there. There have been a few odd things, he said. Now people are a bit scared and apprehensive about going to the loo. In Rosario, Argentina, security cameras at a provincial hospital caught this strange video. An empty stretcher sits in an outdoor courtyard completely alone, but then it starts to move. It's subtle at first, a slow roll forward. You think it may be a bit of wind, but then it keeps going, drifting further across the courtyard, and then it moves back, and then forward again. Keeps moving more and more violently until it reaches the edge of the pavement and drops down onto the grass. Now, the weird part isn't just that it was moving, it's everything else in the shot that isn't moving. The plants in the background are totally still, so it's not wind causing this. Nobody walks into frame, nothing touched that thing. So this first video comes out of Ohio. It's police body cam footage taken during the arrest of a woman named Irene Bedard back in 2022, but it's recently been going viral. Now, the name Irene Bedard may not be all that familiar to you, but Pocahontas probably is. She's the actress who did the voice, so kinda a big part of a lot of our childhoods. The video isn't gaining traction because of her legal problems though, but because of something that happens later in the video. So police were trying to calm her down. They approached her as she was standing at the other end of a hallway, and that's when we hear her yell something unsettling. She says repeatedly, "I don't know what that is."
Bob! I don't know what that is.
So she's very clearly frightened by something. We just don't know what. And according to her words, she doesn't know either. She runs past the camera, and that's when something eerie shows up on the floor, some sort of black morphing shape. This video was posted just last month on Reddit. It was captured in Iraq. Clearly something is gliding across the sky. Now, is it a drone? Well, that's probably your first thought, right? But I don't know. It doesn't really look like one to me. I mean, it could be a drone of some kind, but is it some sort of experimental military one or something? The shape is just so strange. Some commenters said it gave off Metapod vibes. I can kind of see that. Others say it looks like that jellyfish UAP video taken back in 2018, and if you need a reminder there, well, this jellyfish-shaped thing had been flying over a US Joint Operations Base, also in Iraq, and the Pentagon officially classified this thing as an unknown aerial phenomenon. So that certainly adds a bit more mystery to this newer video, but in case you're still thinking that it's just a regular drone, well, it also looks similar to something spotted in this next video taken 2 decades earlier. So this strange clip was captured back in 2005 in Phoenix, Arizona. This one has a very strange shape as well. Doesn't look like your stereotypical flying saucer, but it is not a plane or a satellite either. I almost want to say kinda looks humanoid, like a dude flying around in a jetpack maybe? I don't know. It's too far away to really make out the details, but a commenter posted a link to this video as well, a UAP with a similar shape, but we can make out more odd details. This video was taken in Milan, Italy in 2012. Luckily, some people online have a lot of time on their hands, and a Redditor went in and took some screenshots of the thing and enhanced them. And wow, right? That certainly looks pretty alien. All the weird lights on it, but they're not like little lights. Flashing ones, they're more like just the color of the thing itself. Very bizarre looking. Moving on to some ghostly footage now. Usually ghost videos are pretty hard to make out, but this one is just so clear that I straight up thought it was just a person walking across a room, and I was like, what's supposed to be paranormal about this? Well, according to Chase the Bass, who uploaded the clip to TikTok, yeah, that's not him walking across the room. In fact, he has no idea who or what this is. And the more you watch the clip, the more you realize that there's something off about it. I know it's kind of low quality home security camera footage, but this figure doesn't really look fully solid, especially when compared to all the furniture surrounding it, and then it just completely vanishes once it's in the middle of the room. You'll notice the kitchen light flicks off as soon as it walks in, too. Pretty spooky stuff. What do you all think of this one? Is it staged? Was something up with the camera? Or could this be a genuine piece of paranormal footage? So this creepy footage was caught on a home security camera in Mexico just a few days before Halloween. Perfect. The homeowner had heard weird noises coming from his garage, so he went to check on his dogs. Well, the dogs weren't making the noises. They were totally quiet actually, not barking, they weren't growling or anything. He walks into the garage and we see this freaky figure crouched behind one of the cars. At first, it's on all fours, almost like an animal, but then it stands up and things just get weirder from there. One of the dogs finally reacts to this, and you can see this thing like stretching, like its arms and legs are almost growing. It's just lurking there half hidden, and the whole shape, it just looks wrong, like it's shifting or something. The guy gets closer, the thing crouches down again, and he just nopes out of there to go alert his wife. By the time they come back though, the thing's vanished out of view. So what in the hell was that thing? Well, it turns out there may be a specific name for it. Some folks think it might have been a Nahual, a shapeshifter from Mesoamerican folklore that can take the form of animals. This first video was recorded at the Santa Maria Inn in California and has a reputation, but more on that in a minute. This video was uploaded to TikTok by Tita_80. The uploader, named Martha in real life, and her partner had checked into the hotel when their dog Oreo started acting strange. He really didn't want to go anywhere somewhere near this bench and was nervously growling and barking at it. He wasn't subtle about it. Something was really unsettling him. Now, this was already creepy, but when they watched back over the footage later, they noticed something. A voice. Take a listen.
Come on.
It's very quiet, but if you listen closely, you hear what sounds like a voice whispering, "Come back." It says it a couple times. Now, as I said before, this inn has a pretty legendary reputation for being haunted. It was a favorite pit stop for the Hollywood elite traveling between LA and Hearst Castle. One of the most famous spirits said to be hanging around is the silent film star Rudolph Valentino. We all know and love him. He was a regular at the inn before his sudden death in 1926 at just 31 years old, and he's often linked to room 221, where guests have reported hearing a phantom knocking on the door. They open it, no one's there. And weirder, people have walked into the room and seen a deep indentation on the bed as if someone or something is sprawled out relaxing on top of the covers. Then there's the story of the sea captain. Legend has it he was killed at the inn by his mistress, and he's been a fixture there ever since the hotel opened in 1917. He's mostly seen in the hallways of the gardens, sometimes just staring off in the distance before he vanishes. One guest reported waking up to a feeling of a man's arms around her, only for the figure to whisper, "I drowned," in her ear before disappearing. There are also reports of a piano playing on its own and an elevator that moved between floors when no one's inside, and a mysterious balloon that was once seen following a housekeeper all around the second floor. While most of the ghosts seem friendly or just mischievous, some guests have reported much more intense experiences, like feeling a heavy pressure on their chest or waking up with unexplained scratch marks. And speaking of haunted balloons, this video, it's like a scene out of It. So a janitor at King High School in Tampa, Florida was working a late shift in a classroom covered in confetti and balloons when he pulled out his phone to record something that was freaking him out. He focuses the camera on a single red balloon sitting in the corner, claiming, quote, "No matter where I'm at in the classroom or whatever I decide to do, it just follows me." As he moves around, the balloon actually does begin to edge forward, gliding across the floor. I mean, it follows him out into the hallway. And when a dark, blurry figure appears to sprint behind the door at the end of the hallway, well, that was the breaking point for the janitor. He later mentioned that other workers had actually warned him about weird things happening at the school at night, and knowing the backstory of the school, it kind of makes sense. See, back in 2019, researchers used ground-penetrating radar and discovered that the school was actually built right on the top of the forgotten Ridgewood Cemetery. They found 145 caskets, but records show there could be over 250 people buried there. A man named Marvin was on his way home one night in Santa Cruz when he had an encounter with a phantom horse. Weren't expecting to hear that sentence today, were you?
Darle acá un video de cómo se ve Santa Cruz en la noche. Hey, escucho algo ahí feo.
So, did you hear that? As he's walking down this seemingly empty street, he suddenly hears what sounds like a horse clopping along. He turns around to look, but the street is totally empty. So he keeps walking, and sure enough, he hears it again.
Aquí lo escucho ahora.
When he hears the ghostly galloping a third time, now accompanied by a howling dog, he just takes off running.
Santa Cruz, Vela, ya me voy de por la otra. Uy, señor, que asusté en Santa Cruz, asusté en Santa Cruz.
As he runs more and more, dogs start wailing. Is it him they're reacting to, or someone or something else? This clip was posted to TikTok by Benjamin Dover, filmed in Tampa, Florida in 2020. It's a series of lights moving aimlessly through the sky, and there are two sets of them. Nobody can agree on what they are. I've read everything in the comments, from UFOs, of course, to birds reflecting light, but what do you all think these are? Share your thoughts down below. So next up, we have another dog creeping us all out with its mysterious sixth sense. This video comes from a nursing home where a therapy dog started acting strange. Everyone was sat in a circle, there to pet the dog, when it suddenly walked away from the group and out into the hall, stopping to stare at an empty room. A room where no one was currently housed. But a resident had died there not long before this video was filmed. A dog just stood there, whimpering outside the pitch black room. Yeah, not creepy at all. It's especially strange because because this is a service dog. It's very well trained. So what was the dog sensing that compelled it to come to this specific room? Well, turns out this room has a reputation. It's known as the death room. You may remember I talked about another video featuring this room about a month ago. Check out our video, Disturbing Footage That Should Not Exist, for the full clip. But in short, a nurse went to bless the room after a series of unexplained occurrences, and a rosary bead was lifted into the air, and it did not look natural. All right, well, this one sent a weird little spasm up my spine. Just watch this. Yeah, the more I watch it, the more I want to retch. What in the hell is in there? I thought it was some dirty water dripping out, more like dirty goo, because it's just hanging out of the tap. That would be bad enough to find as is, but for it to just suck itself back in like that, what kind of weird David Cronenberg horror? Seriously though, what is in there? It's not a spider. The movement is just too, I don't really know how to describe it, wiggly, I guess. Spider would just like go right back in, but this thing, you do kind of see it dangle a little bit as it moves. I don't know, it just doesn't look like something that should be alive. Goo shouldn't recoil when gently brushed up against with a tissue. Anyway, enjoy brushing your teeth after watching this. Do you ever get creeped out when your pets react to things that you can't see or hear? We've all been there. Your cat suddenly freezes in place and just stares at an empty corner of your room. Your dog starts barking at the closet, only there's nothing in there. Well, according to Reddit user Derp Peepo, they posted this clip saying that their dog does this periodically. If you listen, there's some pretty obvious footsteps audible over his growling, they write. The steps were not audible out loud, only over playback. I always wonder what's going on, when cats and dogs do stuff like this. I mean, clearly something is freaking this dog out, but what? Dog senses are a lot more developed than ours. They hear, smell, and see way better than we can, which is why there's always been this eerie idea that maybe they're more sensitive to paranormal activity as well. Don't you just love climbing up into your attic to see what's making all the eerie noises at night? A Redditor by the name of Icy Maintenance 7511 had just moved into this tiny wooden house way up in a remote village in northern Italy. After living in the city forever, they were really excited to finally have found a place that was quiet and peaceful, but it didn't stay peaceful and quiet for long. At first, the house seemed cozy, but after a few weeks, weird stuff started happening. Mainly, they'd hear strange noises coming from the attic late at night, random thumps and creaks and bumps, but also sounded like something being dragged across the floor up there. At first, they just brushed it off as the house settling, but the noises got louder. That's when the Redditor decided, you know what, I'm just gonna try and find out what the hell is going on. So they climbed up to the attic and recorded this. Now, amazingly, the Reddit user did something that nobody ever thinks to do in a horror movie. Just leave. Don't sleep there. Icy Maintenance 7511 said they were so scared they bolted out of the house and didn't even go back for their phone, which they left up there in the attic in a panic. They went back way later to grab it. Let me start by saying this video is scary enough without the spooky figure that shows up in the trees. It's just probably not the best idea to be driving a bike through a remote forest in the middle of the night. It's just dangerous. You likely don't need me to tell you that, but this person did it, so I know y'all are out there. So here we see this POV video of someone riding through the forest, again in the middle of the night. Everything is just a blur of trees flying past until the last few seconds. If you slow it down, you'll catch it. Standing off to the side, just barely visible between the trees, is this thing. It looks like a tall, faceless figure wearing a suit. These images went viral a few years back. Reddit user Love Is Evil Xanax uploaded a series of pictures back in 2020 that got a lot of people talking online. They gave some context for the images, writing, "My uncle has a trail cam at my old grandparents' house, who are both dead. The house is abandoned. The camera takes 3 pics every time a motion is detected. This thing only appears in 1 out of 3 of the photos. For more info, for anyone wondering, my uncle was up there and left. The trail cam caught him leaving in his car completely. The trail cam takes pictures so fast it looks like stop motion if looked through quickly. This thing walks up 6 minutes after he left. It's only in a few pics, and the time says the thing was only on screen for 1 second. And the next picture, it's just gone. Never walked out of frame, just went away. Look what happens when this restaurant manager places this candle holder on the table. This video was posted by Northic3 on Reddit, who works at this restaurant in Manchester. The uploader says the man in the clip was the manager at the time, and according to Northic3, he was absolutely convinced that what happened was paranormal. While the table in the video looks like it has a slick, glossy finish, Northic points out that the surface is actually quite bumpy and was completely dry at the time. So this makes the movement of the candle holder even harder to explain, of course. It doesn't just slide once either. Notice that it starts moving, comes to a dead stop, and then starts up again on its own. The building dates back to the 1700s and is pretty notorious for its unsettling atmosphere. The activity is not just limited to moving objects. Northic3 wrote that the sounds of crying are often heard coming from the basement, and there's a tunnel down there that disappears into total darkness. The landlord even warns staff to stay out of the tunnel, saying they don't actually know where it leads. In 2017, a Reddit user named Elturb lost their uncle to a violent home invasion. The uncle had been struggling with addiction, was living with a roommate whose client tried to break in to steal an iPad. Now, a while after the funeral, the Redditor's aunt was home alone on a snowy day. She snapped a quick photo of the snow through the window to share with her family. Seemed like a totally normal, mundane picture until the Redditor's mother started blowing up the family group chat, telling everyone they needed to zoom in on the reflection in the glass. When the Redditor looked closer, they saw the unmistakable image of their uncle sitting on the couch in the reflection. The aunt was terrified. She was adamant that she was the only person in the house when the photo was taken, and apparently she doesn't know the first thing about Photoshop or anything like that, by the way. The story took a chilling turn just a couple months ago. The Redditor asked the aunt to resend the photo so they could show a friend. After saving it from the chat files, the Redditor realized the original image was actually a live photo. So, expecting to debunk the whole thing now, she pressed down on the screen, assuming the uncle would remain perfectly still like a stationary object. Instead, the figure in the reflection actually moves its head. Take a look. In this security footage from a school in Mexico, we see a teacher sitting alone in his classroom, trying to get through some grading. Everything seems normal until he suddenly stops what he's doing and starts acting strange, like he's focused on someone standing right at the door. According to the teacher, a student's mother had appeared in the doorway. He started having a conversation with the woman, asking about a student who, of course, wasn't there since the school day was long over. When you watch the video, the hallway is completely vacant. He's talking and gesturing to no one. He eventually watched the woman turn and walk into the classroom next door. He got up to follow her because their conversation wasn't over, but when he stepped into the adjacent room, it was pitch black. It was totally empty. There was no sign of her in the room or anywhere in the halls either. So at that point, the realization finally hit him. This was not a person he was talking to. Instantly terrified, he grabbed his things and bolted.
In a lonely part of Kazakhstan, far from any major city, satellite images revealed something that looked almost unbelievable at first glance. A giant pentagram carved into the ground. It measures roughly 1,200 feet across, and from above it looks exactly like the kind of symbol people would expect to find in some forbidden or secret location. That is exactly what made it so creepy. This was not found in the middle of a city or beside some tourist attraction. It was sitting out in a remote landscape where almost nobody would ever randomly come across it. Even after explanations pointed to it likely being an outline of a Soviet-era park or star-shaped design, the image still feels deeply unsettling, because when you first see a giant pentagram in the middle of nowhere, your brain does not go to landscaping, it goes to cult, probably. In 2012, villagers near a remote Siberian settlement made a discovery that looked like it had come straight out of a science fiction movie. Deep in the forest, they found a huge metal object, weighing around 440 pounds, shaped like a cylinder with a strange ridged dome on one end. It was so unusual that locals believed it had fallen from space, and media quickly started calling it a UFO fragment. The object was dragged through the snow back to the village and handed over to authorities for inspection, but that only made the mystery stranger. Russia's space agency said it was not related to space technology. NASA's orbital debris chief said it did not appear to be from a spacecraft either, and tests showed it was not radioactive. Part of it was reportedly made of titanium, but no one could immediately explain exactly what it was or how it ended up in the middle of a Siberian forest. In Sudan's Bayuda Desert, archaeologists uncovered a roughly 4,000-year-old burial that stood out because of one deeply strange detail. Inside the grave, they found a ceramic vessel containing charred plant material, wood, animal bones, insect remains, and fossilized droppings, and researchers said they did not know of a similar case. That is exactly the kind of discovery that makes a site feel mysterious rather than simply old. It was not just a body buried in the desert, it was evidence of a ritual nobody fully understands in a place that today feels harsh, empty, and cut off from the rest of the world. The idea that a remote grave could preserve the trace of a ceremony we still cannot interpret adds a whole extra layer of unease. It makes the desert feel less empty and more like it's hiding customs that disappeared without explanation. High in the mountains of Mexico, in a cave called Chiquite, researchers found stone objects that could push human presence in the Americas much further back than many people once thought. What makes this discovery so weird is the cave itself. It's a barren, cold, remote cave, and it does not look like the kind of place ancient people would casually choose to live in for comfort. That is why the discovery hits so hard. You picture a place that feels difficult to reach even now, and then you realize people may have been deep inside it tens of thousands of years ago. It changes the mood of the whole location. Instead of feeling empty, it suddenly feels watched by the distant past. And when an isolated cave starts rewriting parts of human history, it stops being just a cave. It becomes the kind of place that makes the world feel older and stranger than it should.
This one happened at a Mexico City International Airport back in 2016. A security guard named Francisco Hernandez experienced something that he wouldn't have believed himself if he hadn't captured it on camera. He was finishing up the overnight shift when he heard loud banging sounds coming from inside of one of the parked planes. It was around 3 in the morning, right near the end of his shift, so he went on board to check it out, because that was pretty strange. The cabin was dark except for the beam from his flashlight as he moved down the aisle. Then he noticed something near the back of the plane. It was a dark figure slowly leaning out from around the corner at the end of the aisle and then pulling back in. At first, Francisco wasn't sure what he was seeing. He took a few steps forward, thinking it might have just been a trick of the light, but when he noticed the thing move again, he knew that he was not imagining things. Someone or something was in that plane. Utterly terrified, he bolted out of there. This happened in an airport in China. A passenger went through security and started loading his bags onto the conveyor belt like usual. Staff were guiding him through the usual screening process, but somewhere along the line, he clearly misunderstood an instruction, and instead of walking through the body scanner, he climbed right onto the conveyor belt, meant for luggage. Still holding his belongings, he lay down and was carried forward all the way into the X-ray machine. Security staff rushed over trying to stop him, but by then he was already halfway inside the scanner. They must have thought the guy just had way too much to drink, but it turned out he was an inexperienced traveler. It was just a gross misunderstanding, and he will unfortunately be haunted by for the rest of his life. Or maybe he's super well adjusted and was able to just laugh it off. I would not be. Back in 2020, a paranormal investigation group called Retford Ghost Hunters got permission to explore Gamston Airport in Nottinghamshire, England, which used to be a Royal Air Force base during World War II. They actually weren't expecting much. The airport managers had told them there hadn't really been many reports of paranormal activity there before, but while they were inside one of the old wartime hangars, they captured something strange on camera. Under the wing of an aircraft sitting in the hangar, there appeared to be a dark figure standing there. Looking back at the image, it looked like a man wearing some kind of cap and uniform. And what made the whole thing more unsettling was what they found out afterward. On August 4th, 1944, a Wellington bomber took off from the base and crashed near the Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire border. The plane nosedived and exploded shortly after takeoff, killing all 5 Canadian crew members on board. Finally, we have a story from a now deleted Reddit user, which goes as follows. I used to work nights doing camera surveillance at an airport. Mostly boring stuff. Lost luggage, the occasional drunk guy wandering into the wrong area. But one night around 1 a.m., me and another guy were watching cameras near one of the closed terminals. The whole section was empty, except for a cleaning crew on the other side of the building. It was this hallway connecting 2 gates that passengers normally wouldn't use unless the airport was packed. One camera showed a woman standing near the end of it. She was standing there near the wall with her head slightly down. The problem was nobody could figure out how she got there. We checked the earlier footage and never saw her walk into the hallway. 1 minute it was empty, and then she was just there the next camera refresh. The camera's updated every couple seconds, so stuff got missed sometimes, but it still felt strange because there weren't many ways into that area. So we radioed one of the floor guys to go check. While he was walking there, we kept watching the camera. She didn't move the entire time. The floor guy turns the corner into the hallway, and she's gone. We checked the bathrooms, the stairwell, the locked maintenance door nearby. Nobody there. We rewound the footage to see if we missed her leaving, and right before the floor guy entered the hallway, the camera freezes for maybe 1 second. When it comes back, she's not there anymore. After that, nobody liked that hallway much. Even during the day, it had this eerie feeling about it. What you're looking at here is footage from a pretty well-documented UFO sighting at O'Hare Airport in 2006. The case gets talked about a fair amount because it happened in a place full of trained aviation workers, not just random people looking at the sky. It was November 7th, 2006, around 4:15 to 4:30 p.m. at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. A group of United Airlines employees working near gate C-17 said they saw something strange sitting in the sky above the terminal. One ramp worker first noticed it while pushing back an aircraft. He pointed it out, and other workers nearby started looking up too. And before long, more airport staff were watching it. Reports say there were around a dozen employees who saw it, including pilots, mechanics, and ramp crew. They described it as a dark, metallic, disc-shaped object hanging under the cloud layer. It wasn't moving, it was just hovering there quietly, barely made a sound. After a few minutes, people said it suddenly shot straight upward at high speed and disappeared into the clouds. A couple of witnesses also mentioned seeing a clean, circular opening form in the cloud layer right after it left, like something punched right through it. Air traffic control didn't report seeing anything on radar, though. The FAA later said they wouldn't investigate, saying it could have been a weather effect, like a hole punch cloud. And that explanation was incredibly flimsy. People clearly saw an object, and these were airport employees who deal with aircraft every day and know what's normal and what isn't. What you're looking at here seems to be some standard, rather unremarkable airport security footage, but it captures a woman notorious for sneaking onto planes. Her name is Dalia. She's a Russian national with US residency. The first big incident happened in 2024 at JFK Airport. She somehow got onto a Delta flight headed to Paris without going through proper passenger checks. Reports say she blended in with regular travelers, walked through the airport normally, and just made it all the way to the gate without getting flagged. Once on the plane, she didn't take a seat like everyone else. She stayed in one of the bathrooms for most of the flight and only got discovered after the plane landed in France. She was arrested after that and was convicted in 2025 for stowaway charges, but it didn't end there. She later removed her ankle monitor and tried to leave again, which led to another arrest attempt near the Canada border. Then in 2026, she managed to sneak onto another international flight out of the New York, New Jersey area heading toward Europe. She was detained after landing in Milan. It's actually pretty impressive. I'm not even gonna lie, I think this woman's a hero. If I could sneak onto planes and get away with it, I absolutely would, and don't even pretend you wouldn't. Officials have called her a known stowaway, so how does this keep happening? Once is already hard enough, with all the security on planes now, but when someone's already flagged and under supervision, you'd expect airport security to catch them pretty quickly, but in this case, she still managed to get through multiple stages of airport screening more than once. What you're looking at here is surveillance footage of someone walking across the runway at an airport seconds before being hit by a plane. And this is footage captured inside said plane the moment the accident happened. This took place at Denver International Airport just a couple weeks ago. Frontier Airlines flight was taking off late at night. A pedestrian had somehow gotten past the airport's perimeter fence and made it onto the runway area. The person wasn't an employee. He had no authorization to be anywhere near the airfield, obviously. They crossed onto an active runway right as the aircraft was in its takeoff roll. The jet hit them at high speed. The pilots aborted the takeoff almost instantly after realizing they'd hit something. The aircraft came to a stop on the runway. There was a brief engine fire and smoke started filling parts of the plane, forcing an emergency evacuation. Passengers ended up sliding out on emergency chutes onto the tarmac while firefighters rushed in to put out the fire around the engine area. Even though people on board survived, there were injuries during the evacuation. The whole situation turned into a full emergency response in seconds. Investigators tried to figure out how the person managed to breach airport security in the first place. Reports say they managed to climb the 8-foot perimeter fence and make it onto the runway in minutes. In 2014, a 28-year-old German guy named Lars Matank went on vacation with his friends to a beach resort in Bulgaria. What started as a normal trip ended up turning into one of the most infamous missing persons cases in modern history. During the trip, Lars got into a fight with some other tourists over football and ended up with a ruptured eardrum. A doctor told him he shouldn't fly back right away because of the air pressure, so his friends flew home while Lars stayed behind, checking into a cheap hotel near the airport. This is where things really started getting weird because he called his mom in the middle of the night, acting totally paranoid. He told her people were trying to kill him, asked her to cancel his credit cards, and said he was hiding from 4 men who were following him. The next morning, July 8th, Lars went to the airport doctor to get cleared for a flight home. While the doctor was examining him, a construction worker walked into the room, and for no clear reason, Lars just snapped. He jumped up, left his wallet, passport, and all his luggage on the table, and just sprinted out of the room. Airport security cameras captured Lars sprinting out of the terminal doors in total terror, looking over his shoulder as if he was being chased. He ran completely out of the airport, across the parking lot, climbed over a barbed wire fence, and just disappeared into a massive sunflower field. He was never seen again. To this day, nobody knows if he just had a psychotic break from his medication or if he was actually being followed. This footage comes from April 26, 2013 near Rafael Hernandez Airport in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. It's recorded by an infrared camera on board a U.S. Customs and Border Protection aircraft during a routine flight over the area. You see this fast-moving object, and as it moves over the water, it looks like it suddenly splits into 2 separate objects. One of them appears to continue across the shoreline while the other seems to head toward the ocean. Later, the U.S. Department of Defense's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office reviewed the case, and they figured the split wasn't actually a split at all. It was probably 2 separate objects the whole time, moving close together in a straight line. From the angle of the camera and the way infrared picks it up, they briefly looked like one thing breaking into 2, but, that still doesn't explain what these things were. This security camera footage was captured from multiple angles. Residential doorbell cameras caught it as well. On January 31st, 2025, a small jet was captured falling out of the sky in Philadelphia. The footage is pretty terrifying. The plane drops out of the clouds, slams directly into the concrete sidewalk, and instantly erupts into a massive fireball. The plane was an air ambulance flying through heavy fog and rain. On board were 6 people, a captain, a co-pilot, a doctor, a paramedic, and a young pediatric patient being flown home to Mexico with her mother. The jet took off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport, heading out for a quick refueling stop in Missouri, but just 40 seconds into the flight, something went very wrong. The plane completely vanished from radar, diving toward the ground at 11,000 feet per minute. Air traffic control reported that the pilots were talking to the tower right up until the final seconds, and they never once sent out a distress call or indicated anything was broken. The jet came down right next to a local mall. 4 homes were destroyed, 17 other buildings were damaged. Everyone on board the plane died instantly. 2 people died on the ground, and 23 others were injured. On March 22, 2016, 3 men took a taxi from an apartment to the Brussels airport. The driver noticed that their suitcases left a kind of chemical smell in the cab. He didn't think much of it at the time. At 7:58 that morning though, 2 blasts hit the departure hall 9 seconds apart, both in the check-in area. The men had been carrying large suitcases packed with explosives. CCTV footage came out, showing all three men pushing luggage carts through the terminal. People noticed something kind of odd. Two of them were wearing a single black glove on their left hand, which investigators believe were covering the detonators. A third device had also been brought in, but never went off. One of the men, Mohammed Abrini, walked out of the airport before the blasts and left his behind. About an hour later, a fourth attacker set off a device in the middle carriage of a metro train. 32 people died in total, 16 at the airport, 16 in the metro, and over 300 more were injured. It was the deadliest attack on Belgium since World War II. Meanwhile, the taxi driver heard about the attacks on the radio on his way home, so he went straight to a police station, and within hours, police were at the flat that he picked the men up from. Inside, they found a suitcase device that hadn't made it into the cab because there just wasn't enough room, along with materials to make explosives. Two of the airport attackers were arrested on April 8th, 16 days after the attacks. The FBI's facial recognition software helped confirm Abrini as the man seen walking out of the airport in the footage. All five attackers had also been involved in planning the November 2015 Paris attacks. On January 24th, 2011, at around 4:30 in the afternoon, at Domodedovo International Airport in Moscow, blast went off inside the arrivals area. It hit right in the middle of the crowd. 37 people were killed and more than 170 were injured. The explosion basically tore straight through the busiest part of the terminal at the worst possible time. CCTV footage was later played on the news showing emergency crews pulling people out as fast as they could. Later on, investigators figured out the attacker was a 20-year-old man from the North Caucasus region. He also died in the explosion. But after that, it turned into a wider investigation. Police started going through people connected to him. His younger brother was accused of helping put the device together, along with a few others from the same area. And by the end of 2011, several people had been arrested. Then in 2013, the case finally made it to court. 3 of the men involved were handed life sentences. Another was given 10 years for helping with the preparation.
Deep in the Peruvian Andes lies a remote Inca site so difficult to reach that many people compare it to Machu Picchu's hidden cousin. One of the strangest things found there is not a temple or a tomb. It is a set of white stone llama figures built directly into the terrace walls. That image alone is unforgettable. In a lonely mountain complex surrounded by steep terrain, you suddenly find llamas marching across the hillsides in stone. Researchers have said there is nothing else quite like it in the Andes, which only adds to the mystery. It feels artistic, symbolic, and oddly playful, but also eerie because of where it is. These were not decorations in some busy city square, they were placed in a remote ceremonial landscape high in the mountains. On the remote Indonesian island of Flores, inside Liang Bua Cave, scientists uncovered the remains of a tiny human species now known as Homo floresiensis. The discovery became famous because the individual was so small that people immediately started calling it a real-life hobbit. But what makes this find perfect for a mystery list is not just the size, it's the setting. This was not some famous urban excavation site where unusual finds happen all the time. It was a cave on an isolated island, and inside it was evidence of a human relative that most people never imagined existed. In Afghanistan's Bamiyan village, towering Buddha statues were once carved directly into massive cliffs, standing watch over a remote landscape that now feels far removed from the Buddhist world they came from. The 2 giant figures, destroyed in 2001, were around 55 and 38 meters tall, and the surrounding cliffs also contain caves and remains of monastic spaces. That is what makes this place so striking. You are looking at a rugged valley in central Afghanistan, and then you realize it once held colossal, sacred figures visible to travelers moving through the region. One of the strangest archaeological discoveries in recent years came from an ancient port on Egypt's Red Sea coast. In that remote desert setting, archaeologists found a Buddha statue and what scholars described as the first Buddhist inscription found in Egypt, including the first Sanskrit inscription there. That is the kind of discovery that instantly scrambles your mental map of the ancient world. A Buddha in Egypt sounds wrong until you remember how trade once connected distant civilizations. But even knowing that, it still feels shocking. This was not a bustling modern crossroads, it was a remote desert port, and buried there was evidence that ideas, religion, and art had traveled much further than most people imagine. Near the Tigris Tunnel in southeastern Turkey, ancient Assyrian rulers had reliefs and inscriptions carved directly into the rock of a cave system associated with one of the sources of the Tigris. That is already dramatic, but the setting is what makes it unforgettable. These were not carvings made in a palace where crowds would admire them every day. They were placed in a wild, natural site deep in a cave landscape tied to the origin of one of the great rivers of history. Deep off the coast of Alaska, scientists using a remotely operated vehicle found one of the weirdest objects imaginable stuck on a rock on the ocean floor. A small golden orb with a hole in it. It was a discovery about 3,300 meters down in complete darkness during an N expedition. And the best part is that even the scientists on the mission were unsure of what they were looking at in the moment. That uncertainty is what makes this such a perfect number one. It was not ancient ruins or some half-understood monument from a distant past. It was a real object found in one of the most inaccessible places on Earth, and the immediate reaction was basically confusion. That is pure mystery.
This next video from 2017 keeps resurfacing online from an airport in Thailand. It may look like a group of passengers walking along an airport jet bridge, but there's something strange about it. Notice how there's no plane attached. That's why this clip often gets labeled online as ghosts or lost souls stuck in a loop. Some commenters have said the figures could be spirits from a fatal plane crash at the airport in 2007, where a 1-2-GO Airlines flight crashed and killed around 90 people. But the more grounded explanation is that it's an optical illusion, that what people are seeing as floating or ghost-like passengers are actually reflections caused by the shiny glass walls of the Aero Bridge. But what are your thoughts on this one? Back in April 2012, a passenger on a flight over Seoul, South Korea, captured a strange oval white object in the sky, and the video quickly went viral. People were split on what it was. Some thought it could be something extraterrestrial. Others said it was just something ordinary, like a plastic bag or parachute. The thing isn't on screen for long, but it does appear to be saucer-shaped. At first, some people said it might just be a water droplet on the window, which kind of fits the blurry look, but then it moves across the screen and starts rising. It's definitely not a water droplet. Others still argued it could be a plastic bag or parachute, but again, the movement doesn't really match what you'd expect from either of those. I think back in 2012, the general public was a lot more skeptical of this sort of thing and would make what they thought were grounded explanations, but I mean, nowadays, it just feels like reaching. With all the UAP sightings and reports being released now, an unidentified flying object really isn't that far-fetched. So this dashcam footage comes from a truck driver who was just having a normal, quiet shift until it absolutely wasn't. He ended up watching a plane crash right in front of him. This was back in November at Muhammad Ali International Airport in Louisville, Kentucky. It was a UPS cargo plane, and it was already in trouble before it even left the ground. One of the engines caught fire and tore away from the wing during takeoff. The plane rolled sideways, losing altitude, and in just a few seconds, it came down in an industrial area right near some cargo buildings, parking lots. And when it hit, it erupted into a massive fireball. The truck driver just freezes for a second, jaws on the floor, but he snaps out of it and jumps out of the cab, trying to put distance between himself and the fire, which was already spreading to nearby trucks and buildings. The plane was carrying a heavy fuel load, which is why the explosion was as violent as it was. There was a ton of destruction on the ground too, with multiple fires, buildings were hit, vehicles were destroyed, and sadly, nobody on that plane survived. All 3 crew members were killed. People on the ground lost their lives too, and the total death toll climbed to at least a dozen. This happened during a live TV interview at Copenhagen Airport for the Danish Sports Center. A reporter is talking to a dude with passengers ambling through the background, chatting as they pass by with luggage, but then something weird pops up in the shot. There's a blonde woman standing in the background. Now, that's not the weird part. See, luggage rolls past her, a luggage cart, and then she seems to just vanish. One moment she's clearly there, and the next she's gone, still in the exact same spot. No cuts in the video. Urban explorers went inside Mossley Manor care home in Liverpool and ended up catching something very eerie on camera. The place had been shut down for years. It was empty, dark, and falling apart when the group from Finders Beepers History Seekers started filming inside. And while filming a set of stairs, you suddenly notice this dark figure standing at the top. The second it's spotted, it moves to the right and disappears out of view. One of the explorers went upstairs to follow it, but when he reached the top, there was nothing there. No movement, not even a sound. And that was really weird, because the figure had moved toward a dead end. There was a wall there and a drop on the other side of the upper floor. No clear way in or out. Matt Nadine, one of the explorers, later said, "Things like that are bound to give you a cold shiver down your spine." At first he thought it might have been another person in the building, but after checking the layout, he said there was nowhere someone could have gone without being seen. This next video is uploaded by Reddit user Franks First with the caption "Paranormal Activity in Hospital Break Room." See if you spot something in this footage yourself. A dark, shadowy shape floats past the end of the table. This would be weird in any setting, but being that this is a hospital, it's even spookier. And many commenters agree, especially ones who've worked in hospitals themselves. Like Additional Doubt 243, who wrote, "I've been a critical care nurse for 22 years, and I've been witness to some seriously weird stuff in the hospital setting. Since a coworker and I simultaneously witnessed a crash cart move 6 feet by itself, and I have seen an actual apparition on camera in patients' rooms, I can attest that hospitals are weird places to work. Lots of heavy energy." Same goes for this next Reddit user, NurseKitty22, who posted this creepy image saying it was a still from the security camera at the hospital she works at. It came from inside an emergency department seclusion room. Patients are constantly monitored on camera due to high risk of self-harm. Well, that night, a young patient around 17 to 19 years old started insisting there was a child inside the room with them. At first, staff assumed it was part of the hallucinations and delusions the patient was already experiencing. A nurse eventually went in to speak with the patient and try to calm them down. During the interaction, the nurse told the patient that if anything was bothering them, they could tell it to go away. At the same time, a security guard monitoring the live camera feed noticed something unusual. A shadow-like shape appeared to move across the room while the nurse was inside. It shifted from the middle of the space toward the door, then disappeared out of view. The Redditor finished by saying, "I am agnostic. I'm not really a big believer in the afterlife, but keep having some weird experiences in this hospital. Many patients see children constantly as a common delusion. This makes me think there might be something to it. Unless someone has a better explanation of this weird figure moving from the middle to exiting the room through the door, just wild." This footage was supposedly filmed by a hospital security guard working an overnight shift in the ICU medical facility in Hawaiian Gardens, California. According to the Reddit user who posted it, the video was recorded back in 2019. The guard was walking through the hallway when he noticed something strange near one of the doorways. First, it looked like a white blur near the room. He pointed the camera toward it. What appeared to be a dark figure stepped out of the doorway. He kept walking for a second before seeming to realize what he'd just seen. He points the camera back toward the hallway, but the figure is gone. According to the security guard, the wing was totally empty. This creepy image was shared to Reddit by a user named Feli Dupe, who accompanied it with a story she heard from her friend, a former hospital nurse. He said that one night he and another nurse were monitoring the ICU security cameras when they saw a child running in and out of the patient rooms on the feed. They radioed down to the ICU staff to check, but they were told there was no child in the ICU at the time. The two nurses went down to the floor to investigate in person. When they checked the rooms, there was no one there. When they returned to the nurse station, the nurse who'd stayed behind told them that they would not believe what she'd just seen. She said that after they left, a girl appeared on the monitor coming out of the doorway and was watching them walk down the hall. She took a picture of the screen, the picture that the Redditor ended up sharing. The hospital staff were pretty unsettled, especially because a couple days earlier, a young girl had died in the ICU after an anaphylactic episode. Some staff thought the figure in the image looked just like her. Apparently, management had to step in. Everyone signed non-disclosure agreements, and there's a whole process around this because apparently paranormal activity is a very regular thing at hospitals. At least, that's what the former nurse told her. This may look like pretty normal security camera footage, until you realize the nurse chilling on the bench here starts talking to someone in the hallway who isn't actually there. This happened at a hospital in Mexico. This nurse was in an empty corridor, sitting down for his break, when suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, a patient walks up to him, asks where the nearest exit is. He gives her the directions. You can see him in the footage pointing and gesturing as if he's talking to someone standing right in front of him. After the patient made their way down the hall though, the nurse had a chill run through his body. He wasn't sure why, but he was a bit confused. There were no patients on this wing. That's why he chose to sit there on his break. It was quiet, so where had this patient come from? Well, he took a look at the security cameras later that day and his stomach dropped. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Coworkers were pretty weirded out. Clearly, it looks like the guy is just talking to himself, but the nurse was adamant that he'd been talking to a patient. He's been shaken up by the incident ever since, believing he had an encounter with a ghost. This TikToker captured her 96-year-old grandmother, Tante, seeing a person no one else could see just a few days before going into hospice. The clip was posted to TikTok by TK back in 2022. Her uncle is the one behind the camera. Grandma is looking at this one spot in the room, saying that she sees a girl who she describes as pink, and that there are kids having a party. The uncle asks if the girl is Chinese because she lived overseas for a long time. He wondered if she was seeing a girl that she knew when she was young. Grandma saw more that day as well. Did these film students accidentally capture a ghost on camera? This next video comes from Chimpanity Films on YouTube, who in 2008 brought his camera along to a student film shoot at the Metropolitan State Mental Hospital in Norwalk, California to get some behind the scenes footage. Now, most of this video is pretty standard behind the scenes student film stuff. Kids hanging out between takes, cracking jokes, but as they were shooting a scene in this long empty hallway, this was captured. Supposedly, nobody noticed anything until they reviewed the footage later. Now, Metropolitan State Mental Hospital has been around forever. Parts of it are still operating. It opened back in 1916 and over time turned into one of the biggest psychiatric hospitals in the state. At its busiest in the 50s, there were over 5,000 patients living there. But like a lot of old places like this, things eventually started to change for the worst. By the 70s, the hospital was getting a lot of attention for the wrong reasons. There were complaints about how patients were being treated. And a documentary called Hurry Tomorrow came out in 1975 that really put a spotlight on how things were running inside. Not long after that, investigations started digging into patient deaths and conditions across California's mental health system. And Metropolitan was right in the middle of all that. Again though, it never fully shut down. Parts of it are still running today as a psychiatric hospital, but other sections of the old campus were left behind, and those are the areas people usually talk about paranormal activity. We talk a lot about human spirits in these videos. This is the first time I've ever talked about a ghostly cane. This video was posted on YouTube 13 years ago to the channel Rick Herb 4. This is some security camera footage from a nursing home. It's pretty strange. Did you catch that? The cane seems to just appear out of nowhere and then flies across the room on its own. He pulls up the feed from the camera in the next room and we see this. And that's not even where it ends. A doctor walks by and picks up the cane, leaning it up against the wall. It sits there for a while before seemingly disappearing. And that's not the only strange thing captured on this nursing home security cameras. Take a look at this one. Now there's some interesting lore behind this too, shared by one of the commenters who wrote, "My friend showed me these back when it happened. The friend's parents worked there at the center as nurses. I was told they brought in religious specialists of all kinds, priests and stuff like that. So yeah, apparently there was a lot of strange activity going on at this nursing home." This video was originally posted on TikTok by the security guards seen in the footage, Louis Delvaris, but he removed it not long afterwards, saying the experience had just left him very disturbed. He was working a night shift and patrolling a floor by himself when he noticed what looked like an elderly woman standing nearby. As he walked toward her, he started speaking to someone he later described as an old lady who told him that she was lost. As we can see though, there's nobody there beside Louis. Another guard noticed Louis's odd behavior, so he radioed him over his walkie-talkie and told him he wasn't talking to anybody. Louis was the only person on that floor. Hearing that, Louis keeps moving toward the elevator, but quickly suddenly changes his mind. Instead of waiting, he turns around and sprints out of the area, racing through the parking lot, leaving the building altogether as fast as he can. I can't say I blame him. So here's one that made the rounds online a while back, and yeah, it's creepy, but also kind of funny in the way that only real reactions can be. A group of nurses were working a night shift when they decided to go check out a floor in their hospital that's rumored to be haunted. Staff and patients had been talking for a while about weird stuff happening up there. They'd hear unexplained noises, they'd see shadows, usual spooky hospital stuff. It was a slow night, so they figured, why don't we just go check it out? Well, they walked into one of the rooms, and then this happens.
Oh, the curtain moved. Yeah, it did, it moved.
So suddenly one of the curtains moves. It slides. There's no one close to it, but it sort of moves as if someone has brushed past it or even like opened it. Now on its own, maybe that's not so crazy, right? But then this happens.
Yeah, it did, it moved, yes it did, it did. How did you not see that? Oh, okay.
As soon as that thing falls down, they split back down the hallway and are off of that floor. And understandably. This next clip comes from Sal Guerrero Juega on TikTok. He and some friends are sitting around the table finishing up dinner. He pans the camera across the table before coming to a dead stop by an open doorway where he sees this. Someone, or maybe something, is just sitting in the darkness staring into the doorway. It's impossibly pale, its facial features are blurry, and it has this odd shape to it. I mean, just what is that thing? Is it a statue? It'd be a pretty freaky statue. I'm not sure who would ever want to have that thing sitting on their lawn, but to each their own. I mean, to me, it kind of looks like the pale lady from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So again, that's gonna be a no thanks. This next clip was shared to TikTok by Robert What 47. He was walking through the woods one night when suddenly his dog Ollie started getting agitated, barking at something in the tree line. Robert takes a moment to look around and find out what's spooking his dog, and that's when this happens. So not only was the screeching sound freaky, but notice what looked like glowing orange eyes peeking out from the brush. Takes him a couple moments to collect himself after hearing and seeing that, but then he wisely decides to get the hell out of there. In June of 2009, a man calling himself Peter Bergman checked into the Sligo City Hotel in Ireland. He said he was from Austria and gave a Vienna address, but later, police found that that address didn't exist. Over the next few days, security footage showed him walking around the city carrying a purple plastic bag that he kept disposing of in different places, always out of the camera's view. It looked like he was deliberately trying not to be seen getting rid of whatever was inside the bag. Then on June 16th, his body was found on Ross's Point Beach. He was wearing swimming trunks with underwear over them and a t-shirt tucked in. There was no ID, no wallet, no money. Every label on his clothing had been cut off. Police couldn't find anything to identify him. The autopsy showed he had advanced prostate cancer, bone tumors, and heart disease, but oddly, no medication of any kind was in his system. No one ever came forward to identify him, and no match was ever found for his fingerprints or dental records and DNA. After 5 months, the case was closed, and he was buried in an unmarked grave. And to this day, this man is a complete mystery. And finally, we have a wild Bigfoot video from Russia. A group of people were filming near their property after spotting something weird darting through the woods. And when you see what they caught on camera, it's definitely not what you'd expect. Well, now you expect it because I said it's Bigfoot, but they were not expecting to see what they saw. As you can see, something big comes sprinting through the trees, but here's the part that really stands out. The thing isn't stumbling around or moving, like some guy in a costume. It's fast, it's agile, it's leaping across uneven ground like it's done it a million times before. Whether you believe in this piece of footage is a genuine Bigfoot sighting or not, you gotta admit, that's a level of effort you don't often see in stuff like this. This is a creepy one. Here we see two people moving through a dark hospital at night. Based on the audio, they sound like patients who stepped out of the room after noticing something unusual in the building. They're clearly uneasy as they move through the corridors. Right at the beginning, the camera catches what looks like a nurse standing behind a window and a door. The figure is only visible for a moment, just long enough to register before it slips out of view. After that, the two continue moving through the hospital, staying quiet and scanning the hallways. They keep walking deeper into the building, still looking for whatever they think they saw earlier. And then, this happens. This is a very infamous tunnel. It sits in the Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky, former tuberculosis hospital that's built quite the reputation over the years for being one of the most haunted places in the United States. One of the most talked about parts of the building is often referred to as the death tunnel. This tunnel was used back when the hospital was operating to move deceased patients out of the main building. It runs about 500 feet underground. It was designed so bodies could be transported without being seen by other patients or staff inside the hospital. In practice, that meant people were taken down into a long enclosed passage, carried through the tunnel and removed from the building away from the main wards. After the hospital closed, the tunnel stayed exactly as it was, and over time it became one of the most visited parts of the entire site. Visitors will often describe the same kinds of experiences down there. Footsteps when nobody's moving, voices that seem to come from deeper inside the tunnel. Because of the history attached to the place, a lot of people believe the tunnel carries a kind of leftover energy from everything that passed through it during the years it was used to transport the dead. And we have to include another haunted wheelchair video. This one was shared around a bunch, but it was originally uploaded to Reddit by user Stalker the Zone, who said he was working security at a hospital at the time. On his first patrol, the wheelchair was on the right side of the hallway. On his second patrol, he noticed it sitting on the other side. He was a bit creeped out, but probably figured someone had bumped it or something. He decided to start filming, and that's when he caught this. He said he was never really a believer in the paranormal until this experience. This clip was posted by TikTok user jmalillo165 and comes from a hospital where staff started noticing something strange in the laundry area. Security guard got kind of freaked out after seeing one of the washing machines start to move on its own. To make sure he wasn't just imagining things, he pulled up the security footage and gathered a few staff members to watch it with him. Now, the footage they're watching has been sped up, but even taking that into account, the movement is hard to miss. The machine doesn't just vibrate a little or shift an inch, it noticeably changes position across the room. The reactions seem pretty genuine too. Nobody sounds scared necessarily, like nobody's screaming. They're mostly laughing, trying to process what they're seeing. It's very much the kind of reaction that you have when something just catches you off guard and your brain hasn't really figured out how to respond yet. What do you think was going on here though? Is there a rational explanation, or was something stranger happening? This CCTV footage comes from a private hospital in Buenos Aires, Argentina. It is still, without a doubt, one of the creepiest pieces of hospital security footage on the internet. A security guard is sitting alone at the reception desk in the middle of the night when he suddenly stands up and looks toward the entrance. The automatic doors slide open, but nobody walks in. At least nobody that the camera can see. Eerily, the guard immediately starts acting like someone is standing right in front of him. He gestures toward the desk, appears to ask a few questions, and begins writing information down on a clipboard. Then he does something even stranger. He wheels over a wheelchair and seems to offer it to the invisible visitor before guiding them further into the hospital. For minutes, he carries on as if there's a real patient standing there. It wasn't until later he realized something was off. The woman never came back through the reception, so he asked staff if they'd seen her. They hadn't. When he gave them the woman's name, he was told the only patient by that name had died the day before. This creepy clip comes from the abandoned Eloise Psychiatric Hospital in Westland, Michigan, uploaded to the YouTube channel Detroit Paranormal Expeditions. These investigators have a creepy encounter with one of the many spirits said to haunt this abandoned hospital. As they're exploring the third floor, they suddenly hear a loud bang. Apparently, they'd felt the presence of something just moments before. What happened was a vinyl record that had been sitting on a cabinet just flew off and smashed to the ground. They had no idea how that happened, but this is when they decided it was time to leave. Now, there's a lot, and I mean a lot of history to this place. Back in its heyday, it was enormous. It started as a poorhouse in 1839, but over the years, it kept expanding until it became what was basically a small city. At one point, around 10,000 people were living there. It had its own farm, bakery, fire department, police force, even its own railroad system. If you ended up at Eloise, chances are you weren't leaving anytime soon, though. Like a lot of mental hospitals from that era, the history is not exactly pleasant. The psychiatric wards were packed with patients, and treatments that were considered acceptable at the time can be pretty disturbing to read about today. Electric shock therapy was used there, insulin shock treatments, and just a whole laundry list of other cruel methods. As the decades went on, stories of overcrowding or treatments started piling up, and by the early 80s, the psychiatric hospital was finally shut down for good. Of course, that's where the ghost stories come in. People have been saying Eloise is haunted for decades. Former employees, visitors, paranormal investigators have all reported hearing footsteps, voices, seeing dark figures moving through the abandoned buildings. Some say they've heard screams. There's also the cemetery. More than 7,000 people were buried on the grounds over the years. Many of the graves were marked with numbers instead of names. That's one of the reasons Eloise developed such a creepy reputation. A giant abandoned asylum is unsettling enough. Add thousands of forgotten graves and decades of ghost stories, and yeah, it's easy to see why the place became one of Michigan's most famous haunted locations. I get that things on wheels are gonna roll on their own sometimes, but this seems pretty extreme. So a security guard is making his usual rounds when he comes across a wheelchair sitting by itself in the middle of a room. He pauses for a second, clearly confused about why it's there. While he's standing there trying to figure it out, the chair starts moving. At first, he doesn't seem to notice, but when he looks back toward the wheelchair a moment later, it's no longer facing the same direction. Somehow it's turned around completely. The guard just freezes staring at it, so he's trying to process what he just saw. Take a look at this photo of an abandoned asylum in Wales. See anything weird? Check out the top window in the middle. Here's a closer look. The photo was taken by a man named Adam Smith, who said he was walking past the abandoned Brecon and Radnor Lunatic Asylum when he noticed something strange staring down at him from the second floor window. He stopped and snapped a picture, and only later did people zoom in and realize just how creepy it looked. It really does look like there's a face peeking out from inside the building. When the photo was taken in 2016, the asylum had been abandoned for more than 15 years, so exactly who or what is in this picture? There's also the history of the place to consider. Besides being an asylum, the site was also used as a prisoner of war camp during World War II. Safe to say the building has some pretty heavy history. Not a place you want to see a ghoulish looking face peering down at you. Maybe there's a perfectly normal explanation, but I mean, an abandoned asylum, it was also a former POW camp. That's quite a combination. Back in May, a live webcam aimed at a cruise ship docked off the coast of Cozumel near Cancun, Mexico, caught this saucer-shaped object zip right across the screen. Now, at first, it's easy to miss, but when the footage is slowed down, you see this shiny, dark metallic disc-looking thing flying way too fast to be a bird, drone, or a bug. Whatever it was, it didn't behave like a normal bug or aircraft. It just shot past the lens. Actually, it moves so fast that it kind of looks like it suddenly appears and then disappears rather than flying off. There's been a rise in UFO sightings lately, especially after 2024. Strange lights have been spotted in the skies over New Jersey and other states. The Pentagon claimed it was all just drones or planes, but if that's the case, why did the House Intelligence Committee have a classified briefing about it? As journalist Nick Pope put it, one question people should be asking is why the House Intelligence Committee briefing was classified. Good question. So here's a weird one out of Indiana. Back in October of 2024, a bunch of glowing orange orbs were caught on camera zipping through the sky near the Grissom Joint Air Reserve Base, just south of Kokomo. There were 6 or more of these things flying in formation, hovering, flickering, and then just vanishing into thin air. People on the ground were totally freaked out. One person filming said, "I think those are UFOs, and I really don't feel comfortable going to sleep tonight." Same. if I saw that. Well, the footage showed the lights darting across the sky, but it wasn't just people on the ground who noticed. One witness checked the Doppler radar, which is normally used by weather stations to track storms, and they noticed a giant rectangular shape with what looked like a vapor shockwave trailing behind it. A vapor shockwave is a trail that forms when something moves super fast through the air, usually at or near the speed of sound. According to them, this thing was approximately 20 miles in length. Like, what even is that? Now, skeptics jumped in. Alejandro Rojas from Enigma Labs said it looked like military flares because the lights lit up and faded in succession, which is apparently how flares behave. He said the telltale signs are the lights being in a row and lighting up and disappearing in succession. Still, this wasn't an isolated event. Just a few months earlier, there were similar UFO reports near military bases in Virginia. The Air Force didn't say a word about it. Alright, so let's talk about the Mosul Orb, this strange metallic sphere that showed up over Iraq in 2016. This thing was caught on camera by a US spy plane while flying over the city of Mosul. The clip is only about 4 seconds long, but it's pretty wild. You see this perfectly round metallic ball cruising through the air. There's no exhaust coming out of it, there's no visible propulsion, and it clearly does not look like your standard drone. The footage was finally released thanks to a Freedom of Information request by independent journalist Dustin Slaughter, and it ended up being shown to the public by Jeremy Corbell. You might know him as the guy behind the Bob Lazar documentary. Corbell called it the, quote, first military filmed image of a UAP over an active conflict zone, and went on to say, quote, origin, capability, operator, and intent have not been determined in relation to this intelligently controlled UFO, end quote. The Pentagon has confirmed there are hundreds of these metal orbs being tracked all over the world, especially in the Middle East and South Asia. Some were spotted hovering, others just flying off at insane speeds. One witness even described a 1,000-foot wide silver disc floating above the four corners in the US. Even if only half of this stuff is legit, it's no wonder Corbell said it's time for, quote, full declassification and open scientific analysis. This is a TikToker named Dua Lupe. No surprise why she goes by that name. I mean, my god, the resemblance is uncanny. Anyway, the face that appears in the window behind her does not look like Dua Lipa. Quite the opposite, actually. Now, I could stare at Dua Lipa all day. The face in the window, though, I can barely look at for more than a few seconds without wanting to piss myself. That is pretty nightmarish. Remember when I was a kid, I always had this weird fear, totally, like, not for any reason or anything, that I would look out my window and just see a face suddenly appear and stare into my room at me. It kind of looked like that, so that's a no thank you for me. Just what in the hell is this thing? A man named Alejandro Hernandez from Mexico was driving home one night when he noticed a black shape hovering in the sky. He had no idea what he was seeing, so he decided to stop the car to get a better look, and that's when he pulled out his phone and started recording, because whatever this thing was, it was not normal. Unlike most strange videos of things floating in the sky, this doesn't look like a UFO though. This looks more human-shaped, like someone in a cloak. The way it just silently, smoothly glides through the air, it's just eerie. What do you all think about this one though? Is it genuine? Is it a hoax? Share your thoughts down in the comments.